participants. I'm assuming some of them will be coming in a few minutes late. So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you that are here, welcome. We are going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully most of you have seen the exciting news next door across the railroad track, so to speak. It has now been announced and is official that the old Denver Post site is going to be anchored. The new development over there is going to be anchored by the World Trade Center. And we have Jesse and Kim with us to talk a little bit more about what might be a little less splashy, and that is the community commitment framework that the developer Vita is committing to. So I think they've got some very important things to share with us, and I'll turn it over to Jesse and to Kim.
Great. Can you guys see my screen?
We can.
Great. Well, so I am going to go ahead and pass this off first to Manuel. As you said, I think the exciting thing is the World Trade Center that we have shared tonight. So he might just do a quick overview for 5 minutes of exactly what the World Trade Center means at this site. And then I will very quickly walk through the community commitment framework, and we promise we will not go over time. We know you guys have other really important things up tonight. So Manuel, do you want to give a quick overview of the World Trade Center?
Sure. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
So yeah, we started to work with the World Trade Center team back in December. They had they had plans to move to Rhino, but those got delayed because of COVID and other problems that they had over there. So they were looking for another site to move, and it was like a perfect fit between them and us. Many of the things that they were looking for the World Trade Center complex, we already had planned for, like conference space and auditoriums and hotels and office space and all of that. So it was like a perfect fit for us to start working together. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we closed with them, and they are moving here to what is now the press room of the printing plant. And they are locating there, and they are bringing, of course, all of the international and international like power, for say something. And of course, they are also interested in working with the community. They actually have like, what is it, Kim, the program that they have?
It's the Immigrant and Refugee Program, where they help folks enter the World Trade Market who are entrepreneurs here in Denver.
Yeah, they have many programs like that to help entrepreneurs, and they bring international. We have an international pavilion, as you can recall, on the plans for the press room, and over there we're planning on having many things, like an active thing where sometimes there's I don't know, like having weeks for a country or a city or just food from some place, other places from the world or stuff. So I think it's gonna really help to activate this idea that we had for our press building, and we really think that it's gonna actually be a good thing for all of us and for the community.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And if anyone has questions on that, we could take questions on it, or I can't see everyone. I've got my screen set up a different way. So if anyone has a question, happy to answer it, or I'll just jump on in to my part of the presentation. I don't see any hands up. So I'm going to go ahead and go, but feel free to jump in. So thank you guys for taking time to meet with us tonight. This is our third meeting with the PCD about this project. And in previous meetings with you all, you have asked us to come back to you with what we're hearing from other parts of the community and how we are planning to continue to engage with the community. We have had 12 meetings now with various community organizations. As I said, this is our third with you. We've also been meeting with the GES Coalition, who are in Globeville, Elyria, Swansea. And we've also met with Globeville First, who also represents Globeville. And we mailed a flyer and hand flyered the entire Fox Island area and had a meeting with people who have property in the vicinity of the project as well. So through all of that community outreach, we heard a diverse group of ideas that folks want to see at this site. And I'm not going to go through each of those. I've had those up for a little bit. People can read them. But what we're really here to share tonight is after we heard this diverse group of ideas, what we tried to do was put together a framework that we want to commit to the community that addresses what we heard from the community. And so the way that we broke this down was, one, was our immediate need is to make sure that we are addressing the needs of the sort of what we refer to as Fox Island, which is the immediate vicinity of the project. But then also to recognize that there are adjacent communities such as Sunnyside and Elyria, Swansea, and Globeville that also have needs and desires for this project. So we are, the big thing we're doing, I think all of you know where this site is. It's the old Denver Post printing press facility. It's been vacant for almost a decade. And we will be revitalizing that site. We heard from folks who live in the vicinity that they don't always feel safe in their community. And we think that revitalizing the site will lend a ability for folks to feel safe in their community again with the site back online, people and eyes on the street. Parks and open space, as you well know, there is not a lot of green space in this area. And we are excited. While we didn't do a press release the way we did with the World Trade Center, we also wanted to let you guys know that another partnership that has been framed is with the Denver Botanic Gardens. They are very excited to have the ability to engage in Globeville and bring some of their programs up to the site. One of the first things we'll be doing with them is to create a tree nursery on site this summer. And we'll begin incubating and growing the trees that will be on our site. But our hope is also that we can have excess trees to give away to the community. So we'd love to talk with you guys offline about if you have folks in your community who might want to take part in that. And we've also talked to the Globeville folks about that as well. Retail and services, as you well know, there isn't a lot of ability to go just to the bank in this area or to get food or do some of the things that maybe some of us take more for granted in our neighborhoods. And we had a wonderful woman come to our meeting, and she came with a list of 11 national retailers that she would like to see on the site. And while we definitely certainly love national retailers, the commitment is also to be looking at local businesses as well, to be on the site and make sure that we have neighborhood serving retail and businesses here. We've heard a big emphasis on places for families and youth. Obviously, our open space would be a place that folks could come with their families, but we also intend to offer some of those cultural events that Manuel spoke about for free so that the community can gather here for free. And we also, Jose from the beginning has talked about wanting to bring childcare to this site. This next piece, the infrastructure improvements, we've already talked with you guys a couple times about this. We spent quite a bit of time talking, so I'm going to run through it. We are proposing 3 very large pieces of infrastructure to help reconnect this area to the larger community. One is improvements to the existing 44th Avenue bridge that goes to the other side of the highway, to the other side of Globeville. We'll improve that bridge to make it more accessible for bikes and peds and a more comfortable connection there. We will construct a emergency vehicle access bridge at the southern part of the island at Huron Street to make sure that emergency vehicles can get into this area of town. And then the one that we've talked most with you guys about is a bridge to the west from the site, right around 47th. It really kind of hugs the I-70 curve we have a lot of geometry to get over in that area with the light rail tracks and the railroad tracks. And so it's pushed a little further north up by I-70 to make sure we can actually get the bridge up and over and land it. The other thing we heard from the folks in Globeville is that a bus service has been cut from Globeville to the transit station. And so we have committed to working with that community to advocate for that bus service to return. Public art, any tax increment project has a project art component, but outside of that, this developer is very interested in art. It's something that's important to them. And so when we heard from Globeville an interest in having local artists work with us on either short-term or longer-term art, and that is certainly very exciting for this project. And if you guys know of local artists in Sunnyside or anywhere near there, we'd love to hear about that as well, so that we can start doing some short-term art projects. This is the piece when we spoke with you last that we got some questions about on the affordable housing and anti-displacement strategy. So we did a lot of work to try to educate ourselves on how do you really deal with an issue as difficult as displacement or involuntary displacement. So the two tools that we found that the city has really adopted and we've heard from the community is twofold. One is to make sure that we have a focus on economic development and economic benefits for the community that we're going into to help increase wages and allow people to stay in the community. So the first part of our proposal is about economic benefit. First of all, we are creating a place that will have jobs, construction jobs, and we want to make sure the community has access to some of those. But more concretely, we are planning to provide up to 10,000 square feet of free or affordable retail space in the project, and we want to work with the community on how we decide what that space would be used for. We've heard ideas about commercial kitchens to provide workforce training. We've heard ideas about small retailers who might need a brick and mortar store. So we intend to continue that conversation with the community to figure out how to decide what that 10,000 square feet should be. Another offer we wanted you guys to know about is that in this summer, we'll have some pop-up events at the site. And we want to make sure that you guys know that if you have folks who would want to take part in a pop-up event, you know, people with food trucks, or there might be a maker who wants to sell their wares, please contact us. The site does not have a lot going on. If you guys need a place for a festival, let us know. Jose has been really clear he wants stuff happening here. So let us know if there's things that you guys would like to partner with us on this summer as we're all getting hopefully back out into the public. The other piece that we focused on is we are setting aside up to 25,000 square feet of space for either an educational user or a workforce development user or workforce training. This is another place where we'll want ideas from the community on what are some ideas that we want to put there. Is there a higher education or a school? Is there, you know, something to do with manufacturing? All ideas are welcome. So we'll continue the conversation with you on that. We are excited to announce that MSU wants to partner with us at the site with some of their performing arts programs. They currently use the King Center, but the King Center has gotten really, really busy on the Auraria campus. So because we'll have some performing arts spaces, they'll be able to bring some of their programs here, and all of us will then be able to enjoy them up in North Denver. And then we already talked about the World Trade Center. We mentioned that again because we're very proud of that, really excited about that announcement. And then the childcare as well. And this last bullet point is a really, really important one that I don't want to skim over. We have made a commitment to first source hiring at the site, not just for the horizontal, but that the individual buildings will also use first source hiring. We're currently talking with the program that the city uses to think about if that would be applicable on our site, and we'll continue to figure out exactly how we make sure that this actually happens and we're able to implement this commitment. And then the second piece of our anti-displacement strategy is the other tool that has become clear is another important thing as you deal with displacement, and that's affordable housing. So the current requirement for this site that was negotiated with the previous developer is to not build any units on the site. It's simply to pay 125% of linkage fee, or you could opt into 125% of required units. This developer is not interested in paying the linkage fee. They want to make sure that we deliver the units on site. So we broke our affordable housing proposal up into two different proposals. One is an on-site commitment to affordable units, and we are committing 170 units at the site between 60 and 80% AMI. And we will work through all of these other details with the city. We've met with Host twice. You know, we're proposing a 60-year covenant, bedroom counts to reflect the market mix, but all of that we'll work through with them. That's not all ironed out quite yet. We also note that there just aren't that many residential properties on the site right now. So there's about 60. We pulled the assessor's records, and if you don't count the student housing, there's about 60 residential properties. So any displacement directly in the neighborhood, we certainly could handle with 170 affordable units. If there's displacement pressures from our project in Sunnyside, we also think that folks, if they're interested in relocating here, the 60 to 80% AMI probably serves pretty well there. The place that we weren't convinced that building on-site units really helped was when we had a conversation with Globeville. And in our multiple, we've had, I think, 6 meetings with the GES Coalition and 2 with Globeville first. What we really heard from them is a deep fear that their neighborhood is going to sort of get squished out of existence. They've got Rhino to the south, they've got National Western to the east, and now they have us on the west. And so as we heard from them about their concerns about displacement in their neighborhood of single family homes, families in those single family homes, what we wanted to do to try to help stabilize their community was to offer funding of up to $4.25 million to be used in that community. So the other side of I-25 from the project, to try to help stabilize that community with affordable housing. We have already gone over this with them, and they are trying to help us think about how that would best be leveraged. We don't know how the money would be leveraged. We wanted to put it out for thought and see if it was something people were interested in. And so we are having some further meetings with them to think about how that money might be used, and happy to come back and talk about that another time. They also have established a land trust in Globeville. And their hope is that if we are able to create affordable units in their neighborhood, that those units would then be moved into their land trust so that they're perpetually affordable. And we certainly think that makes sense too. So that is it. And I'm happy to answer questions or let you guys get on with the rest of your agenda if there aren't questions.
Kim, a quick question for you.
Sure.
So the AMI that you're using, what would be the boundaries of that area in producing that 60 to 80% AMI?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you at?
So when coming up with that median income,
Mm-hmm.
are you just looking at the Fox Island
Oh, I see.
income, or are you looking at all of Denver? Are you looking at Denver Metro?
So we are using Denver, and that's traditionally what Denver has asked us to use. We did hear from the folks in Globeville that they feel that 60 to 80% doesn't serve their community, and it's another reason why we're trying to get over into the community where the single family homes are and try to get lower AMIs for that affordable housing.
That was to my point. That's just my concern, is that 60 to 80 of Denver is going to be probably, my guess, quite a bit higher than Globeville, as well as Fox Island.
It is. And, you know, I hope she wouldn't mind me saying this, but Councilmember Kanich is like, Kim, 60% is what 80% used to be. We all need to understand that what we talked about 80% 5 years ago is really the people who are at 60% now, because incomes have changed in Denver. And we definitely have heard that. And that is why we're trying to say, we don't know that these units on Fox Island serve the 50% AMI and below. And we're trying to then solve that problem in Globeville, where folks already are. Instead of saying, hey, leave the home you've had for 10 years and move your family over here to this condo, let's try to solve something in that neighborhood.
Okay.
So Kim, that's an incredibly impressive framework. Thank you for taking us through it. Now, the quick question I have for you, and I'll combine it with the question that's in the chat, relative to the bridge that's presumed to come over to Sunnyside, what is the status of the TIF funding? Has that been approved? And at this point in time, has it been finalized that it is not going to be a car bridge?
Thank you for asking for clarification on where we are with TIF. So we have submitted an application for tax increment finance. but determined we needed to make some updates to that application. So it has not been, we have not been going through an actual process yet with Dura. We're hoping to kick that off this month. And that process will take multiple months. And our hope is that our tax increment finance can be approved by the end of this year. So we have a lot of time before that happens. And then on the second part of the question, it is my understanding, and Manuel, you can jump in and tell me that I'm wrong, but it is my understanding that the bridge to the west will be bike ped, not automobile. The issue with a car bridge is the span, is we would have to, the slope. We would have an issue with having to start way back on one side to land it over on Sunny side. So Manuel, do you want to add anything on there?
No, you're right. That's the latest that we know. Yeah.
So how would a pedestrian get from 38th Avenue then to that pedestrian bridge? Are you thinking they would use Huron Street or Fox Street? Because those aren't very bike friendly, pedestrian friendly streets at the moment.
Huron will be a friendly bike and pedestrian street. That's where that's what we are planning to do, like to be a really nice route from north to south, actually. So
well, I will tell you, Manuel, that Inca Street on the Sunnyside side is a very pedestrian friendly street with a nice wide sidewalk already. It may not be aesthetically very pretty yet, but that is definitely something that we should keep in mind, because that is an existing street with a nice wide sidewalk. There's retail activation coming in. There's a lot of density coming in. That could be a nice way to leverage. It's a natural connection as well to the Platte Trail, which would take it directly to the Fox 41st overpass.
Yeah, that's actually how I get to the site. Yeah, I take the Inca Street and I ride my bike through there, so I know.
Oh, so you already know. So yeah. It's a natural. We should keep considering that.
Yeah.
So I need to interrupt and warn everybody that we've only got about 7 more minutes. So I'm wondering if there are any other meeting participants that have questions for Kim.
I've got a question. This is Tripti. So I want to clarify. What I want to know is that on the on the bridge over to Sunnyside around 47th, that auto is not being assessed. And I want to know whether it is or it isn't from your understanding today. I mean, it's great, to have a pedestrian bridge, but I want to assess that auto is not part of the solution that you're looking into. That's one. The other one is, Kim, can you tell us a little bit about your role on this project, right? CRL, lobby firm in the city. I just want to understand kind of your role in this so that we're all clear.
Sure. Why don't we take those? I'll take the first part. I'll take the opposite order. I'll do mine on CRL, and then I'll let Manuel make the commitment on the bridge. So yes, I am with CRL Associates. I think I've introduced myself a couple of times. And so I'm a general consultant to the project team. We do a lot of community outreach work, and that's really where I have spent the bulk of my time on this project. But we also are helping interact with Dura, making sure that these guys understand how that process goes. And then ultimately, this is a vote of City Council. And so when this goes to City Council, Tracy Huggins, who's the executive director of Dura, usually will be the one interacting with council. But if they have questions for the development team, I'll be helping the development team answer those questions.
Thank you.
And then Manuel, can you, sorry, and just on the, I just wanted, Manuel, can you just answer the question on whether or not you are considering this as an auto bridge?
Well, as of right now, we're following the next step study that the city made, and that was considering a bike ped bridge. I know that some people in the city are talking about a vehicular bridge, but I think nothing is on paper right now.
Okay, thank you. That sounds like a TBD in a sense, right? Auto isn't out. It's just that we're looking at pedestrian first. Did I state that correctly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Flossie, I think you had a question.
Yeah, hi Kim, it's Flossie O'Leary. And hello, Manuel. First of all, I love the mix of things you have going on. I particularly like when you're, because I play in that space of some place-based solutions too. When you bring affordable housing, that you're talking about ECE and childcare, that you're talking about jobs and training. To me, the other like fourth leg of that stool, so to speak, stabilizing, is food. Is that going to be part of it?
We have definitely heard a desire to look into food. I've heard there are other developers on the island who also are looking, but we have committed to the community that we will try to bring food as well. We don't want to overload and have two different types, so ours might be a smaller format.
Okay. And then maybe the second part is I heard you talk about bus service from Globeville into Fox Island. And I know you can't control like some of the things we're talking to the city about like the impact of people wanting to get into the light rail into Fox Island from Sunnyside. But is there any talk about any kind of like looping access like from here into there related to Fox Island?
Are you asking if RTD is planning to do that?
You know, RTD, or are you working with RTD because I would think flow of folks in and out of Fox Island is helpful to you, like jobs, events, things like that.
Yeah, so we do plan to engage with RTD, with the community, about some of the cancellation of service. And if they, if they're interested in talking about a shuttle, I think we would love it. I think they've got their hands full right now with some other stuff, but we are taking notes on the questions you guys are asking, and can certainly, when we're meeting with them, see if there's interest in partnering on something like that.
Terrific, thanks. And a couple of my neighbors, they're really bad about coming to meetings like this, but they're asking me about it. Is there some information, like a deck or something, that we can share with other folks who want to learn more?
Definitely. We have a website that's probably the best, and it's foxpark.com. And they can also always contact Jose or Manuel or myself, and there's a contact button there if they have questions.
So
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question.
It looks like Tracy might have her hand up.
Yep,
I can't see
Tracy
everyone.
Huggins has her hand up.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, yes, we can.
My name is Tracy Huggins. I'm the Executive Director of the Denver Urban Renewal Authority, and I just simply wanted to share that as we continue to evaluate the proposal that is in front of us, it is our absolute intention that we will want to meet directly with the community to make sure that you are able to hear from us what our process is, how we have been evaluating the project, and what our role will be. So again, just wanted to make sure that you knew we were listening, and we look forward to having a direct conversation with you as well.
Well, that was so quick. I think we have time for one more.
Bill, it's Niles. Of course, I can't get away without saying anything on the call, and I'll have to dive off here in a little bit. I'm just thinking about and maybe this is just for consideration for later, but the value of the 46th or 47th Avenue bike and pedestrian bridge, considering the existing 41st Avenue bridge for the station. My initial understanding from conversations several years ago about this was the desire to gain better access to I-70, and that was the consideration for an initial auto bridge up there. The on and off ramps there along Pecos really is probably where that would connect into. So something just to think about is, what are we intending to divert that bike and pedestrian traffic further north to come across instead of using the 41st Avenue bridge, or we're anticipating increased use of the bridge for the RTD train access, and so we need more. I don't know if there's answers yet today, but something to consider is what's the true value or benefit of adding that bridge up there from a connectivity standpoint. Where would people be coming or going from and to, considering it's right there along I-70, which is more of an automobile access point.
Yeah, I think that's great feedback, which we appreciate, and it probably can't get into all of it tonight, but do agree it's valuable if we're going to make that type of investment to make sure that it is worthwhile and serves a purpose for the community.
Niles, just to throw 2 cents onto that, those of us that have been thinking about this over the last 5 or 6 weeks since we've learned that the bridge is back on the drawing board, is that the 46th Street in Sunnyside has been designated as a bikeway. So we're hoping that as the design of the bridge gets underway, that we'll find a way of feeding that pedestrian and bike traffic from 47th down onto 46th, and be able to do it in a very natural way, that works well. And then, of course, the other thing that really fits in perfectly for us right now is the fact that we're just about to kick off the neighborhood planning initiative. So we're hoping that all these little pieces, you heard James talk about Inca Street. We want to really enhance Inca Street further. And there's several other ideas that people have for additional green space and bikeways. So there's a lot of different things percolating in the kettle.
That's helpful.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
Jesse, Kim, and your whole team, thank you very much. Congratulations again. We look forward to continuing communication and input. We're very excited for your project, and I want to thank you for sticking within the half hour.
Thank you very much, Bill. Anytime you need to reach out to us, I'm right here and I can answer anything
Great.
that the
We'll
PCD
do
may have.
that. All right. Take care.
Have a good one. Bye.
Okay, everybody. Our second agenda topic tonight will be very quick. We have just in the last few days received notice from the city that 4201 Tejon is due to be redeveloped. There's a proposal from a developer who plans on going forward with a 6-unit complex, which will have to be shoehorned in to what is now a single family lot. It is zoned UMS2, but all we're being asked for input on is whether or not we want to agree to or object to the fact that they are requesting a reduction from the parking minimum. So they do not want to have the number of parking spaces that they would normally be obligated to. The reason I'm bringing this up tonight is because we only have 3 weeks to respond to this request. So I will be sending out via email to the PCD list, presumably most of the people on this call, so that you can take a look at the notice that we've received from the city. And if you have any concerns, or if you are in support of the parking reduction, I'd like to hear back from you via email. And then we will be, over the next couple of weeks, we'll be listening to whatever feedback we get from email and formulating an action plan as to how to give the city a response. Unfortunately, the turnaround is too quick for us to do much of anything else, but we do want to find out how people feel about this. So this seems to be the best way for us to go about that. Okay. All right. Then we're going to move on to our third topic, which is the Monkey Barrel request for 3 specific modifications to their Good Neighbor Agreement. As agreed with Jimmy Nigg, the vote that is going to take place is an advisory vote. It's not final. The final determination will be a vote of the SUNI board. The 3 votes will be, first, a recommendation to the SUNI board that outdoor speakers can stay on until 10 o'clock versus the 9 o'clock current limit. The second item will be a recommendation to the SUNI board that when live music is played indoors, that exterior openings can be open until 10 o'clock versus the current 9 o'clock. And the third item is recommendation to the SUNI board that anytime live music is not being played, that exterior openings can remain open at all times versus the current 9 o'clock limit. So those are the 3 different items that we'll be voting on. I want to stress that during this meeting, we're going to stay very strictly on the topic of these 3 items. You know, we don't want to get down any rabbit holes on other issues relative to other GNAs or any other issues people might have with Monkey Barrel. We're going to stay very focused on these 3 items. There will be 3 separate votes on the 3 different items. The votes will be done via SurveyMonkey within the next 4 days. Only those people registered on this meeting will receive the SurveyMonkey to vote on. So before we open up comments to all of you that are in the meeting, Trupti is going to give a little bit of history of the GNA, and then we will. Then Jimmy's also going to have some summary comments. I would finally stress that we want to keep this constructive and that we need to keep it concise. We have a limited amount of time. We are going to go to 8:30 if needed, but that means that with 41 people waiting to talk, each of you need to keep your discussion points concise. If you do want to speak, please use the raise your hand function, and James will go person by person so that everybody gets a chance to speak. Once everybody has had a chance to speak, Jimmy will be able to make some additional comments, and if need be, Trupti and I can make some clarifying comments as well. And then, as I said, we will have a hard stop at 8:30. We should be able to get everybody in by then. We will certainly do our best. So that is the process going forward. Trupti, did you want to make some comments on the history of the GNA?
Sure. Thank you very much, Bill. I thought it would be good for all of us to kind of be on the same page about, why we're here. How do we find ourselves here? So the GNA that we currently have with Monkey Barrel was executed late 2016 after a long and sometimes contentious process. And the GNA was basically a compromise between Monkey Barrel and the neighborhood to allow live music while also respecting the surrounding neighbors and providing relief from noise disturbances past 9 p.m. All of these provisions were discussed over 6 to 8 months with the neighborhood. So I want to make sure everybody kind of understands that. Earlier in 2020, so I guess early last year, Monkey Barrel, wanted to start discussions about some changes to the GNA. And we, worked with them to have a couple of public meetings. We flyered a couple of blocks around the neighborhood to let them know we were talking about the GNA modifications. We had a couple of meetings in the summer of 2020, but it actually didn't result in us moving forward to kind of where we are today, which is provisions that Jimmy provided so that we could actually vote on them and have him discuss why he wants those. So we find ourselves here now, but it's been a long process. So earlier this year, when we restarted the conversation with Jimmy, we had a meeting with Excise and License to educate ourselves on the hearing process and GNA enforcement. And everybody that was flyered, who responded, I had those emails. That's a group of people I started with. Certainly the recording is available. If more people want it, we can share it. So the enforcement of these provisions, which are under the authority of Denver Excise and License. And the provisions we have actually sit on what referred to as on the face of the license. And what that means is that that the enforcement is with Excise and License, but also that if this license is ever transferred, those provisions go with the license. So why that's important for a community and why maybe we even enter into these contracts is because these are kind of some stated expectations from the community, worried about disturbances from any operations of any business that comes on. And even if this was transferred to another owner, that the new owner would now know that these are the expectations. This is what the neighborhood wants. And that's why these exist. And the value of having them actually on the face of the license is for that transferability and the enforcement. Now the provisions which Bill actually already went into, most of them are all around noise mitigation. The provisions on the license are around trash, closing of the garage doors after a certain time, and turning off the speakers. As it exists today, his cabaret license only allows him to play music indoors, period. There is not live music outdoors or even recorded music outdoors unless he gets a special event permit. And, and those, are something that he has access to and has used. So I wanted to make sure everybody was kind of clear on, what we have, why we have it, and who enforces that. That's really the main point that I wanted to make before we have Jimmy, make his case for why he's asking for these provisions. So if there are no questions specifically around kind of the history or GNA or enforcement, we can move right on to having Jimmy talk to us about these changes that he's requesting. James, anybody asking any questions? Anybody, anything in chat?
Sorry, no, there isn't. Jimmy, go for it.
Actually,
You're on mute.
Hey, Sue, we can come
Says
back.
we just had one question. About special event permit.
You're off mute now. We can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you, Trupti, and thank you to the rest of the SUNY board. And I know you guys have all worked hard on this, and we've been working on it for a long time. So I just want to start by thanking you guys for all your hard work. And I know it hasn't been an easy process. So I just wanted to start there. And thank you to everybody who made the time to get on the call today. I'm honestly just happy to be in this position. I'm happy to be here. A year ago, or even 4 months ago, 5 months ago, we didn't know where we were going to be as a business. And, I'm happy to be in a position where things are starting to turn around for us and we're starting to come back. And I'm thankful to be able to bring back my employees and start giving people back their jobs, being able to bring back musicians that have been out of work for such a long time, artists that have been out of work for a long time. And I just feel like I'm in a really good spot right now with what we're doing, because I see a lot of people, coming back to enjoying their lives, whether it be through employment or through just people that come to visit us. Voting yesterday basically just gives us the flexibility to kind of change around some of our scheduling. It adds, gives us the ability to add some hours in the kitchen so we can keep the kitchen open later. Give some more hours to the kitchen guys, gives more hours to the people that are working for us. It makes it safer for our customers to be sitting outside. They can sit outside for longer periods of time. We can open up the garage doors so people can get to the restrooms easier. Right now, if you're not familiar with the layout of the Monkey Barrel, once we shut the garage doors, there's no way to get in other than the front entrance. And sometimes that area can get a little bit congested, especially when you have a bunch of people coming from the patio, coming inside at the same time, or people waiting in line for drinks. A lot of people want to come inside, go use the restroom, and just come right back out. There's still a lot of people out there that aren't comfortable sitting inside or spending long periods of time inside. So it is going to be a big help with those garage doors. It's also a lot more open air circulation for people that are going to be inside dining. Having those garage doors open when we're not doing live entertainment is going to help us a little bit more on these summer nights. And then lastly, the staff can get out in and out, a little bit easier throughout their shifts to pick up trash and dishes. So we're still required to do the decibel readings and all those things if the garage doors are open. So none of those things are going to change with our business model. One thing that we are putting a little bit more focus on is trying to have these events wrap up between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. So we're trying to start things and end things earlier, out of respect for the neighborhood, but also it just doesn't work out for people to be outside, past a certain time of night and still be able to keep an eye on everything. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that even if these, the speakers are allowed to stay on until 10 or the patio doors are staying open until 10, that's right where we want to be as a business. Now, a lot of what people are going to hear today is going to be complaints from the neighbors that live in the closest proximity to us, and those are the ones that are going to be the most affected by noise. And they're the ones that are always going to be most affected by noise And we're a live entertainment venue. So I'm just going to, jump right out in front of everything and say right now that they're absolutely correct. When they get on the call today and they have complaints and grievances about noise coming from the Monkey Barrel, it's absolutely true. There's going to be noise because we're a live music venue. It's going to be noise coming from the Monkey Barrel because we're a bar. There's going to be noise when people are at trivia, or when a comedian tells the punchline and people start laughing, or when the Avalanche win in overtime, people start cheering, or a musician's playing in the garage. There's going to be noise coming from the Monkey Barrel, and it's just something that's always going to be a part of our business model. Some of the other comments that you're going to hear are going to be about me as a business owner not listening to some of the neighbors and not respecting some of the neighbors' complaints, and they're going to imply that I don't listen and that I don't talk to them. And I just want to say that that's not true. I've been in touch with my closest neighbors through conversations in person, on Facebook, over email. We've agreed to even at one point modify our good neighbor agreement so that one of our neighbors would stop complaining about us, and we added actually restrictions to the good neighbor agreement for decibel readings and an alarm panel door, and even now today he's still complaining about the noise, but we made an effort. I made an effort to try to work with the neighborhood. So some of these complaints, but not all of them, are coming from neighbors that knew we were there before they moved in. They knew they were moving next door to a live music venue. They knew that they were moving next door to a bar. And I didn't get a lot of complaints when they first moved in, but now I get a lot of complaints because they have young children. It wasn't something that started off that way, but it's where we are now. So where I am as a business owner is I have people with kids, and I understand their frustrations. I have a father of 4, and I have my youngest is 5. So I understand that. Where I am as a business owner is I have one neighbor to the left, for example, who doesn't want music at night, and I have another neighbor to the right of me who doesn't want music during the day. So for me, it's kind of difficult and frustrating to try to keep managing my business and running my business when I'm trying to do the right thing. So the last thing I'm going to say, because I know we have a lot of people that want to talk. A year ago, we were all in a situation where we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we were going to get out of our houses. We didn't know if we were going to be able to spend time with our parents. We were all scared. We didn't. Our kids were out of school. We're back in a position now where people are starting to come back. Our kids are going back to school. You can have birthday parties. People can get married. You can hang out with your parents again. So when you hear noise coming from an establishment like ours, just remember as you're walking past the place that those are people having fun. Those are people that are enjoying their lives again. And I want you to consider that when you're making the vote today. I'm going to turn off my screen, but I'll still be listening. Thank you.
I just, if I could jump in real quick, I just wanted to clarify one thing. There have not, and Trupti did it in the chat, but I just want to make sure everyone's clear on this, and that is that we did not make any amendments to the GNA that was originally agreed to in 2016. The decibel readings, and where Jimmy would use his decibel reader to make periodic readings during events, as well as some of the other steps we took, were not amendments to the GNA. Those came out of a mediation that occurred between Jimmy and one of his neighbors. I just wanted to clarify that there have not yet been any amendments made to the GNA since it was adopted in 2016.
So,
And I'll add, those amendments were actually added by Denver Excise and License.
so James, you want to choose the first participant?
First, let me unmute. I'm not seeing any hands raised yet. Oh, now I do. So let's see. So I have Michael Morales. Michael, do you want to jump in?
Hey there. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to keep my camera off because I'm already in my pajamas. So, but I have 2 things. The third provision on here just has a little bit of not misleading, but maybe some scary language to some people. So I wanted to clarify, and I think Jimmy kind of touched on it. it has the language that the exterior openings can remain open at all times. And that seems kind of scary, like, oh my gosh, it's going to be 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and things are going to still be open. But I just wanted to clarify that that is not the case. It's business hours, if I'm correct, and that is, you know, that would be the 10 o'clock limit. So even though it says at all times, it'll still be 10 o'clock.
It would be Denver ordinance in that case. So it would allow till 2 a.m.
It would allow till 2 a.m.
That is correct.
But Jimmy, I don't know if you can talk about what that realistically is as far as hours.
Sure.
Like,
I mean, I think
open till 2 a.m. is, I guess, my question.
Okay, so you know, I think the concern there is that we might try to keep our business open later as a result of having our garage doors open, and that's not really the case. What you know, let me cite a specific example. Comedy night. The comedians are doing open mic. These guys are coming in. They're getting 5 minutes of stage time. We've had 30 to 40 comedians showing up for these things. So if we have all these comedians in line and it's outside and people want to sit outside and they want to enjoy the comedy show, the garage doors can then stay open past 9 o'clock so that the comedians have time to wrap up. If we have trivia going and we have 30 teams competing against each other, we might be able to keep the garage doors open later so that, you know, that the trivia can wrap up. And in the past, what we've had to do is we've had to apply for a special event permit to keep those garage doors open past 9 o'clock. And we were willing to spend the $50 just so that we didn't get into any trouble. But what ends up happening is with now the warmer months, people want to spend more time outside. So those are the types of events I can cite specifically. But, you know, if I think about a Friday night where we're already open until, you know, right now, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, then plan would be to keep the garage doors open so that people that are sitting outside could come back in and out. But, you know, not
Jimmy,
not trying to keep things.
what are your hours currently? What are your opening
right
hours
now,
posted?
we're closing between 11 and 12 during the week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're staying open until 1 o'clock.
So I just want to make it clear, although Jimmy's talking about a business model that would close between 9 and 10, he would have the ability, should he desire, to keep it open till 1 on the weekends or midnight during the weeks.
If there's no live entertainment, but we would still be required to close the garage doors if there were a band or something like that. James, just for clarity, we wouldn't.
Thank you.
We wouldn't have the garage doors open. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great. I wanted to get specifics on that language. And then my other thing is, I work in live entertainment, so I have a little bit of more knowledge about decibel levels and just things like that than the average person. So I just wanted to say or ask, you said decibel level readings. Are there any sensors? Like, where are the sensors? Are they like at the borders of your property? Are they on other people's property? And then also, do you mix it in a specific way where maybe the bass is a little lower because bass frequencies travel further? That's why when a car rolls up next to you, the bass seems to be thumping, but actually when you put your head in the car, it's not as loud as it seems outside the car. So, you know, so is it mixed in a way that maybe, you know, would mitigate some of that concerns? And by the way, I think it's great. I support the Monkey Barrel, and I think live entertainment at Sunnyside is awesome. So I want you guys to keep it up, but I'm just curious about that level of detail when you say you're doing monitoring of the sound. Thanks.
Sure. And that's a great point. Thank you for the support. When you're doing decibel readings, if a car drives by, it can throw off the decibel readings. If somebody's talking next to you, it can throw off the decibel readings. So you bring up a great point. What we're doing right now is we're going to the closest property line to us, which is north of Pachitos. So we go to the closest neighbor's property line, we take our decibel readings from there when there's going to be live entertainment. So that's where we would take our decibel readings, and we're going to do those anytime we have like a band playing inside, or if there's something going on where there's going to be pre-recorded music and we feel like it's going to be a little louder than it normally would be through our patio speakers. So on those occasions, we're going to be out there doing the decibel readings, and we picked up one of the best decibel readers on the market.
All right, so the next person, I'm just gonna go right down the line here. Micah, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks. So I am one of the close neighbors to Monkey Barrel, and just to be clear about those decibel readings, Michael, so Jimmy has come over to my property line, which is not the north facing property line that Jimmy is mentioning. And this was during the Hazel Miller concert. And during that concert, the decibel readings were around 75 to 80 decibels from my back property line. And that being said, I could hear the concert inside my house. So with respect to everybody who likes live music, I love live music as much as the next person. I'm not trying to shut down live music. I'm not trying to shut down live events. The whole point of this is basically adhering to a lawful noise ordinance, which is 55 decibels from my property line. And if it is above that, we have every right to file a noise complaint with the city of Denver with excise and license. And so that being said, with the proposals on the board, I strongly want to, just voice my opinion that, changing the GNA whenever, he has not respected the noise ordinance already. I don't see that that's going to make my life any better. And it's not a matter of who was there first. This house was built in 1906. So if we want to talk about who was here first, this house was here long before the Monkey Barrel. This was a neighborhood long before then. And so it's more of a matter of, just obeying the law. And he has not respected the GNA that is in existence now with the noise ordinance levels that are provided by, the Board of Excise and License. And that's kind of my 2 cents on this. So I don't know if there's a lot more to say about it, but I do not recommend voting for this. So.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And of course, if you want to jump in again later, you can. Based on the chat, I think, Ben, you have probably a different opinion as another neighbor, and you have your hand raised. So why don't you speak next?
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm Ben Gerhardt. I'm Jimmy's next door neighbor. I own Modus Real Estate, and then also the tenants OG Dental and Beauty Kit Studio. In addition, the building adjacent to that across the street from 44th and Umatilla to Vallejo, and then also the Radiator. So pretty much from Monkey Barrel all the way to Radiator, we have an ownership interest. And I can't say more fantastic things about Jimmy from a respect perspective. He stripped down his overhead during the pandemic and actually was working there with his wife and his 2 kids, or 4 kids. And I can't have more respect for him from that perspective. So from a respect perspective, I don't think there's anything more to be said there. From a decibel perspective, we actually are in the real estate business. And if anybody knows, we don't get a day off. We work Monday through Sunday, and it's every day that I have brokers in the office. I have people getting their teeth worked on at OG Dental, and I have people getting a haircut at Beauty Kit all the way up until 10 o'clock at night. And if anybody doesn't believe that, you can come by here, and we're here right now, and we'll be here probably till 9 or 10. And haven't had any situation where Jimmy hasn't been responsive or hasn't been respectful of the situation, whether it's trash, whether it's noise, whether we need to address a situation with traffic or parking. I can't say enough good things about him. He's in a commercial zone district. He's surrounded by commercial, and the guy should be able to run his business at the highest level he can run it. And that house was built there in 1906, but this area was zoned in a commercial district since 1900 as well. So I believe in supporting him at 100%, and I'd be open to taking any questions as well. Thank you so much.
All right, Todd, you've had your hand up for a bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to start by saying, so I'm Todd Rose. I live directly north of the Monkey Barrel. I think the question I just want to pose to the group here is what's fair? If Jimmy and the Monkey Barrel had been abiding by the laws, we would not be in the position we're in today. And Jimmy, I want to talk directly to you for a second. What's fair and what's not fair? Let me give you an example. When you applied for an expanded outdoor seating due to COVID, I didn't object. I thought that was fair. It lets you operate and run your business. However, if this gets voted in, it's not fair. You agreed to the terms of the original GNA. I don't understand why we're able to then modify those terms after the fact. It just doesn't make sense to me. I've got 2 young kids. I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old that are already being woken up by the Monkey Barrel. My 1-year-old goes to sleep at 6:30. My 3-year-old goes to sleep at 7 p.m. They're being woken up by the Monkey Barrel today on the regular. And voting today, yes, just doesn't make, it's just not fair. The same way that I wouldn't vote against you for expanding your outdoor seating to run your business during COVID, allowing later hours into the night with live music or any music for that matter will directly impact my family. That's all I wanted to say.
James, are you muted?
Tony D'Ambrosio, you didn't raise your hand, but it looks like you'd like to speak, so please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, James. So I know there's a lot of people on this call, so I'll keep it brief. I live across the park from Monkey Barrel, so not a direct neighbor. And I've lived here since before Monkey Barrel went in. And, over the last year, especially, or 2, on numerous occasions, I've been in my daughter's bedroom with the sound machine on, and I can still hear bass playing, or be in my backyard and hear an entire Avs game commentary. So it's not the celebratory goal, but I can hear play-by-play happening, for example. So I think, the concern that I have is, Jimmy is trying to say this is occasional spikes in noise for, a comedian getting laughs. But my concern is if we extend the, open doors until 2 a.m., my family, the families around us, and by the way, I've spoken to neighbors who have lived here for 40 years. They're not on this call because they just don't know how to, participate in these forums. And they're also very disappointed in the Monkey Barrel. I can name 3 neighbors that live near me that are not on this call that would say the same thing. So I would just encourage everyone to, a vote no is not a vote against Jimmy. We actually love his bar. We want to support his bar. We want a bar to continue to be there. We just don't want to expand the noise ordinance abilities beyond what is appropriate in a neighborhood. Thank you.
Aaron Bitters.
Hello.
Aaron.
I would like to start out by saying I've lived here longer than the Monkey Barrel. So I am one of those people, and I do have small children. And yes, you can hear the Monkey Barrel in my house. And we went through all of this with the Good Neighbor Agreement the first time. It was a painful and long and terrible experience. We went through it, we finally met, and there was some common ground. And now Jimmy keeps pressing and keeps pressing and keeps pressing. And the thing is, he hasn't been a good neighbor. Anytime through Facebook, he has tried to slander people in the neighborhood. But more importantly, this is still a neighborhood. Yes, there is commercial around it, but there are families that live here and families that predate him. And I think it's fine that he has a patio, but we can't keep making an agreement after agreement after agreement, because he's just going to keep moving the ball on us. And I'm very frustrated. So I would urge everyone to vote no. He hasn't been a good neighbor, and thank you.
Aaron, do you mind if I ask where in the vicinity of Monkey Barrel do you live?
I live cat a corner, so south and west of the parking lot side of it. So I'm quite far away, and inside my house, you can actually still hear the music. Or when there's a trivia show, or when there's a crawfish bake, or whatever. My house is brick. You can still hear his music. And then there's secondary factors. There's the people that drink too much and then pull out of the parking lot with reckless abandon and speed up 44th. Jimmy just hasn't been a good neighbor. There are other establishments in the neighborhood. Radiator is right across the way. They're lovely. We haven't had these issues with any other business other than Jimmy's, and he keeps pressing and pressing and pressing, trying to move the goalpost, and it's very frustrating. And I urge everyone to vote no.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Brittany, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am one of the, I think must be few people who isn't from North Side or Sunny Side, whatever you want to call it. I've lived all throughout Colorado in a bunch of major cities. I've lived other places in Denver. It seems a little NIMBY, honestly. You know, on South Broadway, I lived over there for a while, and there was music and there was shows, and it's part of living in a city, and it's something exciting. And I think, you know, if we want it to be quiet all the time, we can move to the suburbs. But I think we need to support small businesses and the arts, and this is part of the reason we moved to Denver. If you don't like it, I think it might not be the right place for you. So I'm very much in support of Monkey Barrel. It's honestly one of the reasons why I came to Sunnyside, and I wholly support it. I live just south of Monkey Barrel, and the noise has never bothered me.
How far south, Brittany, out of curiosity, if you don't mind me asking? You're muted.
Yeah, I was done. Did you hear the rest of it?
I was just wondering how far south, because it's becoming pretty apparent that it's the folks who are in the closest vicinity to the Monkey Barrel that are most impacted, and some of the strongest opinions aside from Ben. And I'm just curious how far south, if you don't mind, you are from the Monkey Barrel.
I am right on 42 and Umatilla.
Okay, so you are definitely fairly close then. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, Ryan Weatherhead.
Hey everybody. Yeah, I was just responding in the chat. I'm actually at 42nd and Vallejo, so pretty close as well, about 3 blocks away. I've never heard any noise coming from Monkey Barrel. Just by contrast, you know, Sunnyside Music Fest in the park, I hear that clear as day. So just FYI, noise is not an issue 3 blocks away at my house. I just want to echo, I'm sorry, last person's comment. You know, I love having the ability to walk 3 blocks from my house, sit down, have a beer, have a burger, catch some live music, listen to a comedian, watch a hockey game, whatever. I've been here for 15, 16 years. I remember when there was nothing there, when there was no options for any of that sort of thing in the neighborhood. So, you know, I want to have it around. And I guess something I took issue with earlier, you know, the comments that, well, we already agreed, you know, we can't keep coming back and asking for more. Well, I don't understand why there would be anything preventing him from asking to renegotiate a good neighbor agreement at any time. This isn't set in stone or have any time-bound contract to it that I'm aware of. So I guess, you know, I don't see the issue with asking for changes to it. And that's all I'll say.
And let me, since that has come up a couple times, Ryan, let me address that for the group. So within the good neighbor agreement, Jimmy as well as Sunny have the right to do exactly what we're doing right now, which is propose amendments and negotiate. So you're absolutely right in that is within his right.
Okay, well, that's all I had. I just wanted to voice my support, and I'll go back on mute. Thank you.
Thanks. Micah?
Yeah, and I did want to just kind of reiterate, I'm not in any way telling people not to support Monkey Barrel. I think having a local business here is great. To Ben, your comments earlier, I go to OG Dental myself. Since they moved in, I love going over there. They're a great dentist. I want to support local. When Common Grounds was here, I went there almost every morning for a breakfast burrito because honestly, they were delicious. And I have gone to Radiator ever since to get their bagels because I love Leroy's Bagels. I am not one that does not want to support local. However, whenever it's affecting my personal life and trying to enjoy, I mean, heck, one of the reasons I think somebody mentioned about moving all around Colorado. I mean, I moved out here to enjoy the outdoors. I came from Indiana where half the year it's gray. It's a wonderful state, but at the same time, I love being out here for the sunny weather and the wonderful weather that I can enjoy outdoors. If I'm out in my backyard and I can't enjoy my own music because of a noisy neighbor, whether it's a residential neighbor or a commercial neighbor, I think that's a problem. And so I, am not trying to tell people not to go support local or that we don't want live music or we don't want a sense of community around our neighborhood. I would love to have live music here. I think if it can be enjoyed at a reasonable sound level, or even, we're not the only neighborhood that has live music to another point. But I'm assuming every single one of those businesses has to fit within the legal noise limit in the first place. And if they can do that, great, good on them. I hope they have as much live music as possible, but that has not been seen or exercised in this fashion with the good neighbor agreement already. And so my only plea here is that, I'm literally trying to enjoy my house, my backyard, and enjoy the neighborhood that we live in. And the current setup that we have with the noise levels that currently exist with some of these events make my house and living accommodations unacceptable. So whether it's me or the next person that moves into this house, I'm just trying to set it up to where it is a reasonable expectation that, this is a reasonable sound level, and that's not been expressed so far. And so I don't feel like extending that good neighbor agreement to extend these, if we had no issues prior to this, if this was a perfectly, good business that was respecting their neighbors at a reasonable sound level, I would vote yes on this in a heartbeat. But that has not been proven so far. And so, out of respect for the neighbors, whether it's 3 blocks away or 1 block away or right next door, I just ask you to put yourself in our shoes and think about it from our perspective and not just, 3 or 4 blocks away. And so I'm not trying to tell you not to go there. I want you to support Monkey Barrel. I mean, I love to go have a beer myself. I haven't been over there in a while since all these issues have started, but that's just my own personal issues, and I don't want to push that on other people. So that's my 2 cents here. I probably don't have much more to say here, but I just wanted to kind of express, the reasoning behind these thoughts and not necessarily, discourage someone from going there, but, just to have you people that live a few more blocks away understand the actual circumstances for the people that are closer here.
Thanks, Micah. I think now's a good time because it's come up a couple times in the chat to bring up the 3 points that are being debated here. Trupti or Bill, do either of you have those up on your screen? I'm looking for mine. Just so we can go over those 3 points.
James, I've published them in chat. They're all 3 in the chat now.
Okay. I want to highlight one point, and this is a question that came in, or a clarifying point. And that is that the GNA is only a restriction on Jimmy's cabaret license. And it restricts the doors and speakers from being on currently past 9 o'clock. One of the points, I believe it's the third point, is that the exterior openings and the speakers outside could be played during all business hours, and under state law, that would be from 7 for a liquor license, and under state law, that would be from 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. So I want everybody to think for a moment and understand that that would allow those speakers, the noise that bothers some folks, to be on by right. I'm not saying Jimmy's going to do this, but by right under state law from 7 a.m. until 2 a.m.
Hey, James, I want to add to that, which is, it doesn't matter what we have in this GNA or what we agree to or what Jimmy wants to do. One of the things that we have to understand is there is a noise ordinance that applies to every one of us, and no one is immune from that. And basically, it's 55 decibels up to 10 p.m. and 50 between, I think, 10 and 7. So, just kind of keep that in mind, which is that there is an ordinance in place that all of us are subjected to. This is why you won't go mow your lawn at 5 a.m. and piss off your neighbors, right? You wouldn't do that because it would be loud. But I just want to make it clear that regardless of the GNA or any agreement we enter into or modify, does not change the ordinance. And I think the ordinance is what it is. And I think folks near and far can expect all businesses as well as their neighbors to abide by the noise ordinance. And I think it's hard for Jimmy to have a live, music venue and try to do stuff outdoors and be within those noise ordinance. But just keep that in mind that the noise ordinance really, dominates kind of what is allowed and not allowed. And what we're doing was really to put in provisions that will keep noise at bay. So that's my only comment there. Thank you.
James, Jimmy's asking if he could respond. In the chat, he's asking if you can unmute Jimmy.
Oh, I didn't think, sorry.
Honestly, it's okay, James. We're past that point. I'll just circle back at the end of the conversation.
Okay, I did share my screen so that we can. I know Bill put it in the chat, but so we can see it in one place. Hopefully, everyone can see that. So to along the lines of what Trupti just said, this would recommend that outdoor speakers can stay on until 10 versus the current 9. Now, Jimmy still has to stay within 55 decibels. Although I think some neighbors are saying that even when it's within 55 decibels, that can be heard on their property. Second point is recommend to the board that when live music is played indoors, that the exterior openings can stay open until 10. Again, adhering to 55 decibels. And then the third is that whenever live music is not being played, so this would be under state law, from 7 a.m. till 2 a.m., the exterior openings can remain open. Again, adhering to 55 decibels.
James, am I muted? This is Keith Howard.
You are not. Go ahead, Keith.
I would simply second the remarks that made by Micah and by Trupti. It is important for everyone to understand that there are 2 licenses at 4400 Tejon, a tavern license and a cabaret license. The tavern is not affected by the GNA and does have the state law defined hours, which you've stated. Another point to be remembered is that Denver has a noise ordinance. Trupti has stressed this. It is a weak noise ordinance, and it is difficult to enforce, but it does exist. And in neighborhoods like Sunnyside, which were old streetcar neighborhoods and were built, contrary to remarks I heard earlier from someone who should know better, Sunnyside was built long before there was any zoning. So commercial properties were built right next to residential properties because there was no restriction. When zoning was instituted in 1955, all those things were grandfathered in, which means that we have in a neighborhood like Sunnyside, residential properties and commercial properties absolutely cheek by jowl. Yes, we live in a city. We have to rub along together. And that means that businesses that make noise have to keep it within limits. Those limits are defined by the noise ordinance. The neighbors who live nearby have every right to insist that it be enforced. I think SUNY is taking a serious risk by proposing, in effect, to intensify a sacrifice zone around 4400 Tejon. I don't think the neighborhood association should be in that business. I think that the modifications being proposed will intensify an effect which is already too much for the nearby neighbors. I oppose them, and I support the neighbors who oppose them. Thank you, James.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Trupti, do you have something to add still? You don't have to. I see you thinking. I'm going to mute you because now this is where we derail. No, I'm kidding.
No. I was thinking about, what Keith was saying. And, to me, the businesses and residents are all part of our community. And I think everyone's rights need to be, exercised and respected. Keith, to your point about, SUNY taking a risk, I think one of the reasons that at least the points we're looking at have changed from 9 to 10, why I'm going to go on record and say why I think the change from 9 to 10 may be reasonable is because it aligns with the noise ordinance time. So, 10 o'clock is when the noise ordinance changes. So is 9:30, what's the right number? 10 is a number as good as any other number. Now, having said that, we still have to abide by Jimmy still has to abide by the noise ordinance piece. And that is not negotiable. and I don't think, unless you're going to petition the city to change the law, that is the law. So we could change to 10, doesn't really impact the fact that 55 decibels are what you have to be within 10 p.m. And after that, it's 50. So I hear what you're saying, Keith, but I think, being fair about this, being consistent, and also having community expectations kind of being consistent and fair, I think is important for us to consider as an organization. Thank you.
I would like to hear from Jimmy again. You were going to respond, Jimmy, I think, to some responses earlier. If you could kind of just respond broadly to some of the questions that have come up, maybe some of the ways you've mitigated some of those complaints, and then also what your thoughts are behind the 3 asks and how they would benefit you. Versus what we have now.
Sure. Thank you, Matt. Just as a quick response to what Troops you just said, because we're on the topic. If there's going to be an issue with noise and somebody's going to come out and they're going to cite me for being over decibel readings or decibel levels rather, then that's absolutely correct. When I do my decibel readings, it's at the start of the entertainment. So if it ends at 10 o'clock, that's better for everyone because we don't want to go over those decibel readings. We don't want to get violations. As a business owner, I'm doing what I need to do by taking those decibel readings to make sure that we're not violating any rules. Okay, so let me start there. If it goes from 9 to 10 o'clock and at 9:30, as Truthy pointed out, the noise somehow jumps up, which it wouldn't, then there should be some concern that between 9 and 10 now things are going to get louder and things are somehow going to change. And that's absolutely not the case. If there's no music and there's no entertainment and we have our garage doors open, decibel readings are not going to be an issue. Being too loud is not going to be an issue. The only thing that's going to change is the garage doors are open and people can walk in and out of our building, and they should have the right to do that, especially during COVID. The other thing I was going to touch on was just in the response to what Micah said. Micah, and I was going to ask him this question, but I'll just go ahead and answer it or tell you, because I already had a conversation with him. Micah's lived there in his house for 3 years. He's rented the house for 3 years. I didn't have any interaction with Micah until September of last year, when Micah came over and said the noise was too loud when we were having an avalanche watch party at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm sorry, we were having a canned food drive at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it might have been closer to 3 or 4. It was wrapping up. We had a canned food drive where we had a truck outside and there was noise coming from the truck because we were doing a Saved by the Bell 80s, 90s theme, and we had trivia going on that night. And he came over and told us that it was too loud. And I had a conversation with him outside his house. I stood out front. I waited until trivia started to make sure trivia wasn't going to be too loud. And that was the last I heard of him until he complained in an email that he sent out to everyone with video saying that an event that I had for an avalanche watch party was too loud. And he sent out an email to everybody. So I just want to clarify, in the 3 years that he's lived there, I've had 2 interactions with complaints from him. And then all of a sudden now the Monkey Barrel is a huge problem. And I don't understand. How can you live in a location for 3 years? And I get it, COVID, we were probably a little quiet. But let's say the year prior, leading up to where we are now, never had any issues, never had any interaction. But now all of a sudden, you know, here we are. It's a huge problem that I'm here. And that's it. I'll let you go back to what you guys are talking about.
Jimmy, I would urge you not to start picking individual residents and trying to single them out. This is bigger than one individual resident. And I think you're going down a dangerous path, singling out one individual.
I'm responding to his comments. That's all I'm doing. They was asked to respond to his comments, and that was a long time ago in this conversation.
So there's a comment in the comments area, and I will say that I've also heard this, which is, you know, there are issues, we just haven't complained. One of the things that I've heard over and over again, at least over the last year of kind of talking to people, is that most folks haven't complained as much as they could have complained because they really care about your business and they care about, you know, being fair, and they care about, just not being a good neighbor. So I think let's kind of just keep that in mind, that every complaint not had is still something that is out there, but it just isn't, you know, documented as a complaint. So there may be more complaints out there. And, again, I hope there aren't, but I have heard that multiple times, that people haven't resorted to complaints in the beginning, that they've reached out to you or, you know, tried to, and after a while, they just felt like they weren't getting anywhere. That's kind of what I've heard. And right. Whether that's real or not, it's here, you know, he said, she said. I just want to make it clear that there could be more folks out there. For instance, I think somebody mentioned a neighbor who's elderly doesn't want to jump into this. They just don't want the trouble. They're affected by the noise, but they don't really want to get on a call, face, you know, people, make complaints. I think confrontation is hard for a lot of people. So, you know, there may be more complaints than you're actually aware of, Jimmy, or more disturbances than you're aware of. That disturbances doesn't equal complaints. Or
well, and just to respond to that, I'm not aware of any other issues aside from the 2 neighbors that I've spoken to. And Tony's getting on here telling me not to name anybody by name. I've never met a Tony, or at least Tony's never come over to my business and said, "Hey, Jimmy, I just want to let you know this is an issue. And you have to work it out as a neighbor," or sent me an email or tried to get a hold of me by phone. And I'm not saying you have to do that as a neighbor. I'm just saying I've only had interactions with 2 of my neighbors in 6 years. And that's it. If there's an issue with more neighbors out there, I would love the feedback. I would love for them to reach out to me. I'd love for them to tell me, "Hey, you know, this particular event I didn't have a problem with, but this particular event was an issue, and I'm going to tell you why. This is where I live." And that should be an open dialogue between me and my neighbors. And it shouldn't be a hostile thing. It shouldn't be a situation where you feel like you can't talk to me. I've never given anybody that impression.
I got to jump in here. If we're talking about history, so I moved here back in 2016. This is before there was live music at the Monkey Barrel. And Jimmy, I tried to work with you for 2 years straight without involving the SUNY board and without involving any kind of government agency. I got nowhere, and that's why I tried to keep it friendly and neighborly, by the way, for 2 whole years before going to the SUNY board and before going to the Department of Excise and Licenses.
Hi, this is Megan McNeil. I also just have to jump in for a moment because I was one of the neighbors involved with trying to meet with Jimmy initially when he was trying to apply for his cabaret license. We met with him in our neighbor's backyard for quite a long time, negotiated in good faith, and then within hours before the SUNY vote, Jimmy had his lawyer call and renege on everything that we had negotiated. I was one of the neighbors that testified with excise and liquor. I was one of the neighbors that had my home vandalized afterwards. I'm friends with one of the neighbors who was doxxed after trying to negotiate. And so I just want to be clear that it's really disingenuous to say that you haven't heard complaints from any other neighbors. And we have tried to work with you. And I think extending this agreement is only going to be creating more of a problem rather than solving one. Thank you.
I have no idea who that is.
James, you going to call on somebody?
Yeah, Michael Morales, your hand is up. I don't know if you want to jump back in.
Yeah, I don't know, do I? The concern I have, and I've been hearing now from a lot of neighbors, these issues that I did not know about previous. I'm wondering if there's anything in writing that we can get that is a process to monitor the DB, because Jimmy, you said yourself, like you check the DB maybe at the beginning of live events. Let's just talk about live events. Now, let's not talk about sports where people may cheer and it may get loud in moments or whatnot. But if you're at the beginning of a live event and you check the DB, it's going to be at a certain level. As that concert goes on, it's going to get louder. That's just how things are mixed. That's just the band gets energy. That's just, so do you check it at 15-minute increments? Do you check it at half-hour increments? It's going to go up. That's inherent in a live event. So I'm wondering, do you have somebody physically mixing it, or does the band mix themselves? How often are you monitoring? Things like that.
Michael?
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to step in, and this is where we're going to need to stay focused on these 3 questions. I appreciate your approach and your attempt at problem solving. It's just not pertinent to these 3 questions because we're not.
Well,
what I would suggest to you is, if you've got an idea that might help the situation, certainly please talk to Jimmy about it. I just don't think this is the format for it.
Okay, my thought process was, if we can get a commitment, I might be more apt to vote yes on these if we can get a commitment that there's more monitoring going on rather than just once at the beginning of an event. That's all.
It is Trupti. I mean, I think it is somewhat relevant of a question. You're trying to understand, like, whether the monitoring is sufficient for the venue or the timeline. And I don't know the answer. I guess Jimmy does, but I want to give you
We're not talking about live events here. We're not talking about live events. Live events are not affected, though. And I do not believe Jimmy is going to be out every evening between 9 and 10 with his decibel reader. That's unrealistic. So that's why I think that is not a path that we head down. Now, if live music was being discussed, then I think it would be more pertinent.
Well,
But
like,
live music is not being discussed.
let's remember that it doesn't matter what music is being played. The 55 decibels is still the 55 decibels, regardless of whether it's recorded, it's speaker.
I 100% agree, Trupti, but we're talking about 3 questions here that'll be voted on. And one of them does not have to.
Aren't the first 2 questions that we're voting on, those are live events, right?
No, they are not.
It doesn't say that speakers can stay on until 10 p.m. during live events. The exterior openings can be open until 10 during live events. That's number 2.
Michael, item two is referenced live, yes.
Item 2 is
Yeah,
live.
thank you.
You're correct.
Hey, Michael, I think you touched on something, and I wanted to share a conversation I've had with the mediator, and this is really not related to Monkey Barrel, but the mediator shared a situation that they're having with another business in a different neighborhood. But to your point, that business and neighborhood came to the decision that, and you touched on this before, Michael, that decibel readers will be placed outside or in specific locations, and they were continuously being monitored, and ones that excise and licensees, any neighbor could get on an app and see what's going on. But so let's remember that these kinds of solutions are not outside the realm of possibility when it comes to thinking about a solution that would work for everyone here. So, and I think you touched on, I mean, your question of how often you monitor it is, and I think earlier you mentioned, are these points stationed at specific locations? Those are real solutions that have been employed in other parts of the city. So, let's be open and broad about what the solutions can be if we need to go down that path. Thank you.
I don't think Phil's spoken yet.
Yeah, sorry if I missed it earlier in the meeting. I'm just curious about this 55 decibel reading. How many documented cases has Monkey Barrel violated that limit? Are there any citations in the last 4 years? If so, how many? How frequently is this an issue? It seems like something you can objectively measure.
I think we can get that information.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Oh, so yes, we've been in Sunnyside in this location for almost 6 years, and we received 1 citation for being over the noise ordinance back in February of 2020.
I would add that we do have some current and open complaints for which Jimmy actually requested mediation. So there are other ones that are potentially there. And I can go into a broader conversation of how excise and license gets involved and what they do when they get involved, if the group wants to hear this. But I want to say there are more currently a couple of 3 complaints that Jimmy has asked mediation on. So that is an open situation. We don't know where that's going to be, but there are those 3 that are more current. I don't think citations are listed. And again, I don't know the legalese on this stuff, but there are more complaints than simply the one that resulted in a citation.
Sure, truth, yeah, and there might not be any record of that violation because we actually did settle with our neighbor in exchange for that mediation and agreement. Yep. We added the decibel readings requirement and the alarm panel agreement to our G&A so that we could resolve the issue.
And I think that's worth noting that in a previous situation, there was mediation and Jimmy, did the things that they asked. That included making sure that the side door didn't open and close as often because the noise moves and travels every time that opened. He actually bought a decibel reader that the city said, use this, not your phone app, which is not very reliable. And what was the third thing, Jimmy? Was there a third thing besides the kind of the use of that door and decibel reader and taking decibel readings during live events?
So it wasn't an emergency exit prior. And what we found out after discussing this with a mediator was that the issue coming from the Monkey Barrel when we shut our garage doors and had a band playing in there past 10 o'clock, or I'm sorry, rather past 9 right now, or back in February, was that people were opening up the back door and going outside and sometimes holding the door open for periods of time or propping it open. So even though we were doing our decibel readings and doing our due diligence, there were people that were propping that door open, and we realized that and decided to put an alarm panel on there, which we now activate so that when there is live entertainment, that alarm panel will be active.
So I want to do a quick time check. We've got a hard stop in 20 minutes. If any of you have not had a chance to speak, but you'd like to, please raise your hand so James can call on you.
Real quick, can I just comment back on this something real quick? So the timing of all this, I think, is also really important. When this process was going down, the mediation, this was right before COVID hit and right before everything happened with COVID. So I think the timing is really important to note there, because it was literally weeks before COVID really hit the streets here, and it's been quiet because of that, but only until recently did it start picking back up.
Micah, you want to jump in?
Yeah, if you don't mind. So I kind of wanted to hit on Philip's comment about citations. So just because there haven't been as many quote citations to the city in that time frame, I mean, it's not saying that there couldn't have been. And also to the point of Jimmy's comment of not actually reaching out. My wife has called over there. I've called over there to ask to turn down the music. We've tried to be good neighbors through all of this in the past. And so whether or not his employees actually relay that message to Jimmy or not, that's a different story. But for instance, I'll bring up the Hazel Miller concert that he had at his place. From my back property line, that was 75 to 80 decibels. So whether or not I called the police or filed something with the city, which I did not that day because we were trying to work through that. I'd met with Jimmy post me sending out some emails with videos about his, I guess, entertainment that he had, not just on the one occasion with the Saved by the Bell, but with another occasion that he had currently had that week, which was back in February or March. I'd have to look at the actual date. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the Hazel Miller concert followed that. And I did not file a police report or anything with excise and license, but it still reached 75 to 80 decibels from my backyard. And so what that should be at is 55 decibels until 10 p.m., which is a restaurant conversation. So it should be, you should be able to enjoy yourself, but definitely not have have that interfere with your personal life. And whenever I'm on the catty corner block from Monkey Barrel and it's 80 decibels, that's too loud. And whether or not it's a citation with the city or not, I mean, we could start filing more of those to, prove your point. But we've tried to work this in the past and it has not worked out. So, if what it takes is more citations, that's what it takes. But, to the other point of Jimmy saying that we haven't filed that or reached out to him in the first couple of years that we lived here, I didn't know how all this worked. I'm figuring this out. I'm not saying that it didn't annoy me. Actually, I think it was, we bought our house 3 years ago, and a week after closing, we had drove over to our house. There was a pool out in front of Monkey Barrel with a loudspeaker bus. I think he's had that bus there multiple times since. And we immediately were questioning whether or not this was a house that we wanted to continue to buy, but we had already signed the papers, so it was too late. And so, that being said, I think, if it's just too loud, it's too loud, period. That's all there is to it. And the fact that he hasn't really obeyed that in the past, I'll just reiterate it. I don't think that we should be giving more leniency to our GNA because he hasn't respected, the law in the past. So I don't know if I made myself clear there, but, I did want to clarify a couple of things there.
I'm not defending the volume of the Hazel Miller show, but if that was a special use permit, does the 55 decibels still apply if you get a special use or a special event permit?
Yes.
Just a point of clarification.
Yes. I actually talked to excise and license.
It seems
and this question, and they verified for me under no No, actually, because I was under the impression a festival license would change that, which that is not a special use permit, special event permit. The special event permit allows him to do stuff outside because otherwise he can't have entertainment outside. That's one of the reasons I think the special event permit is being used here, and Jimmy can correct me on that. However, I did talk to Excise and License as a follow-up to the call we had with them, and I was under the impression that a festival license allows them to change the decibel units. And at least that what he said was he looked into it, and his name is Dominic Viana. I think the folks who attended the call with him know who he is. He indicated that no, there is no land use changes that would affect the decibels. I think the difference is that there's a different tolerance in people when a festival happens once a year and when music is going to be over decibels on the normal continuously once a week or whatever it is. And I think that is might be the difference. When we throw our jazz, maybe we're going above the decibels ourselves, so I'll be honest. But my understanding and the information I received specifically on this question, the answer is no. The decibels are what they are under all circumstances. If somebody finds out information otherwise, let us know, but this came right from Excise and License who looked into it. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, it's just hard to believe. It seems difficult to understand why the city would allow you to hold an outdoor event and still hold you to a standard that is a conversational level of noise at the property level. That seems difficult needle to thread.
No,
Spencer's hands up.
You're muted, Spencer.
I just wanted to chime in here. I'm a small business owner in Sunnyside. I've been here since 2010, actually 2009. I've seen the neighborhood change dramatically. I see it happening on my block every single day. They knock down an old house and put up a new one. I never got one complaint in this neighborhood until people that were buying $1 million homes moved in. Nothing wrong with that. I love it. It's great business for the neighborhood. But I've seen a trend in the neighborhood change where things that used to be acceptable don't really seem acceptable anymore. And I don't know if that's cool for people that have been here for a long time, that are used to seeing it a different way than it is today, so to speak. Like this park up the street from me and down the road from Monkey Barrel was on Gangland, Denver. Like, let's not forget, this is the north side. Yes, it's changing, but it's also the north side. And there's a lot of people here that like don't mind loud music and don't mind a party in the street. And they might not be a part of this, internet thing here because they might not have access to the internet. And I don't know if those people are really voicing their opinion, and they might be a majority of the community that actually utilize the Monkey Bar as a place to go and hang out and enjoy time with themselves and their family. I respect this guy. The fact that he put, Rose and Carbones in there after they closed, I could still get a sandwich that I loved. I mean, I'm with Jimmy here, and I think the rest of the community should really reconsider, their feelings towards this guy because, hey, thanks for helping out, Carbones. Appreciate it. That's all I got.
Thanks, Spencer. Again, we're going to be running out of time here, so if there's anybody that hasn't had a chance to speak, follow Spencer's lead.
I'll sum up kind of what I'm hearing and kind of the way I feel. And I had a different experience than Megan when Monkey Barrel was coming in. I also testified at that. I did get a parking ticket, but I didn't get doxxed that night. But I think there are definitely some days that the Monkey Barrel is loud that could be toned down. Some people reference the pool party. I would say that's probably the worst. I've seen it and could hear it. So there's definitely a noise issue. I don't think anyone wants to put an end to live music, comedy, all the good stuff that Monkey Barrel brings. But I definitely think the noise level is kind of the issue here. So it's not necessarily a timing. So if we could, I'd maybe propose to Jimmy to maybe come back with some items that have some limitations to get that time extended, but keep the noise down. But either way, I'll keep supporting Monkey Barrel.
Chris, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
All right, thanks. Yeah, so I'm a nearby neighbor to the Monkey Barrel. I live on Umatilla between 44th and 43rd, and definitely can hear the Monkey Barrel at times. And I think the thing that I would put out to the group is, you know, as Micah mentioned, and I think Aaron and Megan mentioned, you know, these people live really close to the Monkey Barrel, and they're not asking people not to go there. They're not asking the Monkey Barrel to make less noise. I mean, there's been people talking about that, but this meeting isn't about the Monkey Barrel making less noise. It's not about taking any rights away from Monkey Barrel. It really, the people who are asking folks to vote no on this are just asking folks to vote against allowing the Monkey Barrel to make more noise every single day that they're open, and affecting those people in a negative way every single day, potentially. So, you know, it's not that they're asking people not to enjoy it, and the people that do enjoy it can keep enjoying it the same way that they are. I think it's just important to remember that no one's voting to take any rights they already have away from them. And the other thing I'll point out, and I mean, I know this is probably quite obvious to lots of people, is that, you know, the last one about leaving the openings open at all times. Jimmy, you can share with the group that your intention is to close at 10, but what you'll really be held to is what it says. And if it says at any time, that means at any time. And that means if you want to stay open as long as you legally are allowed, you can open those doors up as long as you legally are allowed. And lastly, you know, noise has been talked about a lot. It's hard to measure. If you have a meter, it makes it a lot easier, but it's not like the rain. You can't see how noisy something was the next morning. The only way to measure noise is at the moment that it happens. So that's all I have. Thank you.
That was well put, Chris. Thanks for that. Those comments. I just want to remind everyone that when the vote goes out, there are 3 amendments that will be voted on. So it'll be a separate yes or no for each one of those. So specific, and the third point on leaving those doors open all the time, you can support the 9 to 10 and not support the doors being allowed to be open at all times. So I just want to make that clear before the meeting ends, that it'll be 3 separate items to vote on. We haven't heard from Michelle Hansen yet, so I'm gonna go to her. And Michelle, we have 6 minutes left, and I want to have some closing comments. So if you could keep it as brief as possible, thanks.
Absolutely. I'm Shelly Hansen. I live in Sunnyside. I'm on 47th and Shoshone. I also work at Beauty Kit Studio in the Modus building right behind Monkey Barrel. I just want to add to the noise complaints that I was working in the salon during the Hazel Miller concert. And I want to say that with full honesty, I did not hear any of that concert inside the salon. It was not disrupted whatsoever with the doors closed. There was a lot of action going on in the neighborhood, which I personally think is a beautiful thing after everything's been closed and everybody's waiting for that. When I got off work at 3 p.m., I joined my family on the patio to listen to all that music and seeing the community together, which is all what we've been waiting for during all this time, was a beautiful thing. It was great to see people out listening to music, congregating together. So I just wanted to add that Monkey Barrel brings a great thing to the neighborhood, and I love it. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Mama.
Megan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, thank you. Just very briefly, since I was involved with this kind of way back like Matt. Matt, I'm so glad that you didn't face any negative repercussions after working with Jimmy on this. But for the neighbors who did testify against Jimmy, every single one of us was vandalized on the exact same night. And the resident who was doxxed online was an older resident, clearly not you. But I think it's pertinent, just the way Ben kind of testified about his impressions of Jimmy, to have a good sense of who we're negotiating with, and that those things are real. And that's a big part of why we are struggling so much with this agreement. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to jump in before we kind of give some closing thoughts here?
So let's go to closing thoughts.
I think Jimmy had some, at least he put in his comment that he had something brief.
Yeah, Bill mentioned earlier I was going to have an opportunity to speak at the end, and I'll keep it quick. Again, to be clear, this isn't going to change anything that we're doing at the Monkey Barrel. If the speakers are on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're talking about patio speakers, those levels are going to be the same at 5 o'clock as they are going to be at 9:05, 9:30, and 9:59. We're going to close them at 10 instead of 9. The garage doors are going to close on one regulation here if we have live music at 10 instead of 9. But we're talking about being able to leave our patio speakers on so people can hang out outside and enjoy the patio an hour longer every night. For those that don't want to go to bed at 9, they can sit outside and enjoy patio music or watch the game from 9 to 10 instead of having to shut everything down at 9 o'clock. If the bar down the street is allowed to stay or allowed to keep their patio speakers on for 10 o'clock during a playoff game or to entertain people out on their patio, then we should have the same rights that they do. When we signed this agreement 6 years ago, we didn't realize how much emphasis was going to be put on outdoor seating, especially after a pandemic. So I'm one of those business owners that signed an agreement, and in that agreement, we were allowed to make changes to it and vote on it every year. And I'm using that option right now because after the pandemic, people's behavior has changed. I'm not asking for people to say, yes, we want more loud noise coming from your establishment. I'm asking you to let the people that are having a good time, that are there enjoying themselves, having dinner, watching a game, or just hanging out, to be able to do that an hour longer every single night. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Tripty, I don't have anything to add. I don't know if you've got any closing comments. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you.
And James, if you don't, I will go, but if you want to go first, go ahead.
No, I think that, you know, the noise is an issue, and I think it's always going to be an issue. And having dealt with Jimmy and done a walkthrough and been very involved in the Monkey Barrel since it really opened, and I've lived in the neighborhood for 12 years. The sound carries strange, and Jimmy and I have talked about that, and I think it bounces off of some roofs and heads right into Todd's home. And in some cases, even at 55 decibels, it's going to be an issue. It's very hard to keep it at 55 decibels. The neighbors that are impacted most are those who live in the closest vicinity to the Monkey Barrel. And they're probably going to continue to be impacted. Many of them have adapted and accepted it. I think their main issue is that now we are extending the period that they'll be impacted. And for everyone on this call, I think we should consider the impact that that'll have on each one of Jimmy's neighbors. And that is not me being biased one way or the other. I just think in the end, we are a community. And as a community, we need to be thoughtful of all people. And I hear a lot of comments, and I very much support Jimmy's business. But I also support all those within the community. And we want to find a solution that's equitable for all. And so have a conscience when you vote. Think about what you're voting and how it might impact others who will be impacted outside of their choice. And they don't have a choice to walk to the Monkey Barrel when they want to, but are going to hear the Monkey Barrel regardless. And again, so please just keep that in mind as you consider your vote. Trupti, go ahead.
Thanks. And yeah, definitely echo what he just said. And it's definitely one of the points I was going to make as well about kind of the empathy here. But I wanted to wrap it up and kind of share some of the things that, I think the board, and we're a volunteer board. Through this process, I've had a lot of people feel sorry for us because we're in a position of working on something that's difficult and, and we don't get paid for this. So, I just want to make sure that I cover a couple of things here, kind of what we should keep in mind. So, while it's important to gauge community feedback, we need to keep in mind a few things. And here's, for one, per excise and license, modifications to GNA are rare to non-existent. And the reason I'm saying that is, let's think about the process, the 6-8 month process we went through originally to come up with these. Granted, the pandemic is it is a large change. And I think part of the reason why we're here and talking to Jimmy and talking to all of you is because we recognize that there's some changes here and maybe some things will never go back. But, GNAs are rare, and has the community changed that much where the noise is no longer an issue? I want everybody to think about that. The current context, such as complaints or ongoing mediation, as well as adherence to existing GNA, have to be factored into the decision-making process for the board. So this isn't simply a very simple silo, because if it was, I'd say, great, he can do whatever he wants, right? But it's a little bit more complex and nuanced, and we really need to be considering everything in its entirety as we make a decision as a board on what to move forward. And certainly we're taking into consideration the PCD recommendation that's going to come through the board. But keep in mind, there are other things that the board does need to consider into this decision-making process. And while this is a neighborhood amenity, and I really believe it is, I live 2 blocks away, and Jimmy, you know how I feel. I'm at your business pretty often. We've shared a drink or two pretty often. I love the place, but I also recognize that being 2 blocks away, I'm not impacted as much. And good for me that I'm 2 blocks away and I'm not impacted by noise. And I love that amenity. But we need to be empathetic to the neighbors who are most impacted by the business operations. And I think for folks who are voting, think about it from the sense that if a business moved in next to you that you weren't a fan of, do you want someone, 10 blocks away making the decision? Or, what's your thought process there? And I will add that excise and license uses something they define as designated area. And that's basically a map of 3 blocks around a business. And they look at those and they look for input from that group of people to make a decision on things like needs and desires. And needs and desires is the decision they need to make when they say, yep, another liquor license should be given here. Yep, a cabaret license should be given here. So just remember that excise and license really looks at the folks most impacted when making their decision. We're not excise and license, and we're interested in the entire community's input. But keep in mind that there's a reason excise and license uses a designated area. And then the SUNI will review the recommendations of the PCD, the history of the GNA, the opinions and comments shared today from everyone, as well as the folks most impacted, and any complaint history and ongoing mediation. So I want to make sure you guys understand that the board has a tough job in looking at all of these things. And, we are not basing it on what I or one individual personally would want. We really need to take the impact of the community, and especially those most affected, into consideration. And I want you guys to understand that, when you do see whatever decision and, we communicate what it is that we came up with, I want you to understand that it's a tough decision for us to make. And it's difficult because we care about both Jimmy, Monkey Barrel, as well as all the residents. Thank you.
Jimmy, I feel like I should give you a just chance to give closing thoughts, and then I'm going to end the meeting. If you want.
I really feel like we touched on it all. I mean, again, if I'm going to say one last thing, I'm just going to say that, again, the people that are coming in are just trying to have a good time. We've all been locked down for a year, and I'm trying to provide an environment where I can help out local charity organizations. I can host fundraisers. I can entertain reunions. I've had people calling me because they want to have wedding receptions. And some of these limitations on my license are going to affect my ability to do those things. If I have to shut down the entertainment at 9 o'clock at night when somebody wants to have a wedding reception, and I have to go out and get a special event permit, and I'm only allowed 10 of those per year. So that's all. I mean, I just take the human factor into consideration. I understand that the neighbors that live around me are the most directly impacted, and I start off by saying that. And I also started off by saying that I'm still willing to work with them and try to come to a resolution. I just feel like now more than ever, people need to get out, they need to get together, they need to live their lives again. And I think that's what we're doing at the Monkey Barrel. So if you can handle a little bit of noise, please vote yes.
Okay. Thanks very much. I will, the vote will be going out over SurveyMonkey. I'll be sending it to everyone who is on this call, who is a resident. So if for some reason you haven't registered for this call, you might want to shoot me an email, which I'll put that in the chat real quick to everyone. You might want to, if you were on this call and you didn't register, just to make sure that I get it to you, if you could send me an email. Let me get that out. And
James, how would anyone be on this call without having registered?
I don't know the answer to that question, Keith, other than I see people on this call who didn't register. So either it's a different name or I don't know. Now I have busily, I do not have the answer to that. And it's the reason I bring it up, Keith, is quite frankly, because I'm surprised by it.
Okay. Okay, this might be an issue, obviously. Thanks, James.
I have written down everyone's name though, so.
Hey, I just want to compliment really everybody that was on this call. This was a potentially contentious situation, and as a neighborhood, I think we should be pretty proud of how we handled it. I'm really impressed.
All right. Well, thanks very much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you.